Do you know Ghana elects national level ahead of states? The president and a legislature. The president is elected for a 4-year term by the people. According to the constitution, each president can be elected for only 2 terms, after which they are no longer eligible to run for presidency. Now, the Parliament of Ghana has 275 members elected for a 4-year term in single-seat constituencies. Unlike the presidency, parliamentarians are eligible to run for as many as possible, so long as they are sound mind. Do you know the presidential election is won by having more than 50% of a valid votes cast, whilst the parliamentary election is won by a simple majority? Take note of this. The voting system has encouraged Ghanaian politics into a two-party system, creating extreme difficulty for anybody attempting to achieve electoral success under any banner other than those of the two dominant parties. Do you know elections have been held every 4 years since 1992? Presidential and parliamentary elections are held alongside each other generally on 7th December every 4 years. For one to qualify as a presidential candidate, the person is required to be Ghanaian citizens by birth, be at least 40 years old, and must be of sound mind. The person must either be nominated by a political party or stand as independent candidates, provided the necessary requirements are met, including a full payment of presidential filing fees. Presidential campaigns typically span several months to years leading up to election day. Candidates are allowed to engage in rallies, debates, and media appearances to communicate their vision and developmental policies, that is manifesto, for the country and Ghana support from voters. Ghanaian citizens aged 18 and above are eligible to vote in presidential elections. The presidential and parliamentary elections are organized, conducted, and supervised by the Electoral Commission, EC, the official body responsible for public elections and referendums in Ghana. This commission is headed by the Electoral Commissioner, who operates independently and has the mandate by the Constitution to ensure the integrity and the transparency of the electoral process. Take note that the presidential elections were held for the first time in Ghana on 27th April 1960. The elections were held alongside a referendum on creating a republic with an executive presidency. The winner of the elections will become the country's first president if the new Republican Constitution was passed, which it did. 1960 Ghanaian presidential election, there were only 2 candidates: Kwame Nkrumah, incumbent prime minister and leader of the Convention People's Party, that is CPP; J.B. Dankwa, United Party leader and one of the Big Six. After the election, CPP, Kwame Nkrumah, had 1,016,076, which is 89.07%, and J.B. Dankwa, United Party, got 124,623, which is 10.93%. So Kwame Nkrumah, CPP, was elected as the president of Ghana. Do you know, after winning the election and passing the new constitution in the simultaneous referendum, Nkrumah was inaugurated on 1st July 1960, replacing Governor General William as a head of state. Dankwa was imprisoned the following year under the Preventive Detection Act, but only held for a year. On his release, he was elected president of the Ghana Bar Association. He was imprisoned again in 1964 and died in jail. 4 years later, another referendum strengthened Nkrumah's powers and turned the country into a one-party state with an official result of 99.1% in support. Do you also know that Ghana was the first sub-Saharan African country to gain independence from Britain in 1957? In preparation for self-rule, the natives formed political parties along Western models, and 2 of the earliest parties to be formed were the United Gold Coast Convention, which was UGCC, and the Convention People's Party, which is CPP, in 1947 and 1949 respectively. In 1951, elections were held to choose political leaders and legislative representatives for the people. The members included chiefs who were elected indirectly by the governor and a section of educated African Africans who were elected directly at the polls. This election gave Ghana a taste of what the British democratic model was. Subsequent elections were held in 1954 and 1956 to consolidate democracy in the country and towards the grant of independence. The Ghanaian society is heterogeneous, one, and so salient of cultural differences, religion, and partisanship politics exist. Nonetheless, for the sake of independence, the various ethnic groups and religious affiliations worked in hand to attain self-rule through consensus democracy. Independence was granted on 6 March 1957, and Kwame Nkrumah was the leader who championed that struggle. Thus, from 1957 to 1966, he undertook massive developmental projects and pursued sound socio-economic policies towards the welfare of Ghanaians. But the enmity that ensued between him on one hand and the army and the police on the other hand led to the introduction of purchase in Ghanaian body politic when his government was toppled in 1966 by a team of army officers. This was followed by 4 more purchases with dire consequences for the country. One of such consequences is that politics in Ghana has been reduced to economic stagnation, propaganda, ill-thought-out policies, and the production of short-sighted leaders, thus worsening the plight of the common citizen.